The Fever posted on X, we have waived Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmons, and Kiana Traylor. And you see the thank yous here for Megan and Jessica and Kiana.
The final roster decisions have landed, and with opening night only 3 days away, the Indiana Fever front office made the calls that every training camp eventually demands. Megan McConnell, Jessica Timpson, and Kiana Traylor were waived, 3 players whose last few weeks were spent fighting for every possession, every drill, and every opportunity to prove they belonged. They competed through practices, film sessions, and high-pressure scrimmages, knowing that every moment could shape their future. Then, in an instant, the numbers won. Indiana's 2026 roster is now officially set. 12 players on the active roster, Justine Passat on a developmental contract, and a season opener against the Dallas Wings arriving in just 72 hours. That is how quickly the transition happens, from fighting for a spot to preparing for games that count. And that is what makes these decisions so difficult. In the WNBA, the margin between making a roster and going home is razor thin. There are fewer spots, fewer layers of roster flexibility, and every opening becomes a high-stakes battle. For the players who made it, the focus now turns to opening night. For the players who did not, the next opportunity begins immediately. And as the season approaches, this final 12-player group will now carry the weight of what could become one of the most important years in recent Indiana Fever history.
Megan here, because she really did have a cool story. Her brother, of course, TJ McConnell of the Indiana Pacers. That would have been really cool to have that tandem. And she was on her way from visiting her brother in Indiana when she got the call about being invited to training camp. So that was really an exciting story, and I think one that people were kind of pulling for because they like TJ, because this is a great human interest story.
Megan McConnell, the sister of Indiana Pacers guard TJ McConnell and the Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year out of Duquesne, arrived at camp as a major long shot, but she competed with real edge from the moment she stepped on the floor. Against Nigeria, she played 11 minutes, collected 3 steals, and handed out 3 assists, showing the kind of defensive intensity and toughness that immediately gets noticed. But in a Fever backcourt already crowded with Caitlin Clark's generational gravity, Kelsey Mitchell's speed, Raven Johnson's defensive pressure, and the veteran presence of Tasha Harris and Chitori Walker-Kimbrough, there simply was not enough room left. The fairy tale path in Indiana came to an end there. McConnell now heads to waivers, and if no team claims her within 48 hours, she becomes an unrestricted free agent. Then there was Jessica Timpson, the Alabama rookie who flashed real raw potential in short bursts. Her debut against the New York Liberty turned heads when she scored 10 points on 4 of 6 shooting, showing the entire arena how quickly she could heat up and how dangerous that release from deep could become. But when the final decisions arrived, General Manager Lynn Dunn and head coach Stephanie White leaned toward veteran experience, proven defense, and roster stability over rookie upside and streak scoring. And then came the hardest decision of all, the gut-wrenching cut that hit the deepest: Kiana Traylor.
This is the way it is. Now, I expected Traylor to remain. I did. I thought that she would make the team. And who knows what's going to happen, like I said, but I felt like she came out, she was intense, she did a good job, she did a decent job in all 3 of those games, and so I thought she would make the cut. At this point, not the case. Now, we do know
her preseason debut may have been the most impressive performance from any bubble player on the entire roster. Against the New York Liberty, she scored 8 points on 3 of 5 shooting and finished +8 in just under 11 minutes. More than the numbers, it was the way she looked: calm, composed, and completely comfortable at the professional level. She hit shots, defended with urgency, and checked nearly every box you could ask of a player fighting to survive on a non-guaranteed training camp contract. And yet, she was still cut. The reason is brutal but simple. The numbers are the numbers. There are only 144 roster spots across the entire league, only 12 active spots in Indiana, and more players deserving opportunities than there are places to keep them. At some point, the front office had to make hard decisions and trim the roster to fit the unforgiving salary cap. Now, that process is over. The cuts are done, the dust has settled, and the conversation is shifting towards something more important. While much of the mainstream discussion has focused on headlines and reactions, the real question is what this final 12-player roster actually looks like from a tactical standpoint. Because this is the group that will take the floor on Saturday under Stephanie White. And from that moment forward, every rotation, every substitution, and every lineup decision will start revealing what this team truly is.
The New York Liberty, we were cheering for them. We were thinking, oh my goodness, we've got great players to choose from. And we did have great players to choose from. I'm not saying that we didn't. I'm just saying that that first game was like eyes wide open. And then you had the game against the Dallas Wings and the game against Nigeria. When you look at
Now look at the guard rotation. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Raven Johnson, Tasha Harris, and Chitori Walker-Kimbrough. That is 5 guards on the active roster, and each one brings a different layer to how Indiana wants to play. Clark is the undisputed franchise point guard, the engine that makes the entire operation move. Mitchell is the lethal scoring guard who just secured a supermax deal and can change a game in a matter of minutes. Raven Johnson gives the Fever something they badly needed last season, a defensive specialist who can also handle the ball and steady the second unit. Tasha Harris brings veteran control, calm decision-making, and the kind of floor leadership every fast team needs when the pace starts to get chaotic. Walker-Kimbrough is the instant offense spark, the kind of bench scorer who can suddenly erupt and flip momentum in a heartbeat. Altogether, this is a deep, dangerous backcourt built to run, attack early, and pressure teams in transition. Now shift to the forwards and wings. Sophie Cunningham, Maisha Hines-Allen, and Monique Billings bring toughness, edge, and physicality around Aaliyah Boston. Cunningham stretches the floor from deep and plays with an intensity that gets under opponents' skin. Maisha Hines-Allen is a bruising interior presence who can move the ball and create from the post. Billings adds athleticism, defensive versatility on the perimeter, and the ability to sprint the floor in transition. Then come the centers, Aaliyah Boston, Michaela Timpson, and Amira Stantis. Boston remains the franchise anchor. Timpson is the emerging young center whose efficiency around the rim has started to turn heads. Dantas gives Indiana a veteran stretch option who can pull opposing bigs away from the paint and open driving lanes for Caitlin Clark. And then there is the 13th player, Justine Pysat, waiting in the background.
Breaking! As I am editing this video, I saw the news. Annie Costabile posted that Marta Suarez was signed to a developmental contract. No, not by the Indiana Fever, but by the Phoenix Mercury. The Phoenix Mercury. And along those
The 6'4" sharpshooter out of Vanderbilt is officially on a developmental contract, and it feels like the exact outcome many people around the Fever expected from the moment draft night ended. Indiana found a smart opening inside the new collective bargaining agreement, a way to keep her in the building without sacrificing precious salary cap space. She practices with the team, travels with the team, sits in every film session, and remains part of the daily rhythm of the franchise. But she can only be activated for 12 of the 44 regular season games. For a young player chasing full minutes, it is far from ideal, yet it keeps her close and gives the Fever a dangerous shooting weapon they can deploy when injuries or matchup problems suddenly appear. But do not let the fresh roster graphics and the preseason blowouts fool you, because there are still major concerns hanging over this team. The frontcourt depth behind Aaliyah Boston remains alarmingly thin when it comes to proven production. Monique Billings went 1 for 5 against Dallas. Maisha Hines-Allen is solid and dependable, but against elite frontcourt talent, she is not a true game-changing force. Damiris Dantas shot 2 for 11 in one game and 5 for 9 in another, and that inconsistency in the paint still feels unresolved. If Boston misses any time with that lingering lower leg issue, the Fever could suddenly find themselves overwhelmed inside against powerhouse teams like the Las Vegas Aces and the Minnesota Lynx. And then another question begins to rise. What about Lexi Hall?